Welcome back to the Homeowner's Handbook. I'm Trevor, accompanied by Bruce. Today we're going to talk about air filters.
What do you know about filters? Tell me a little bit about them. What is even the point of having a filter in your system?
For me, the point is to filter out contaminants in the air, dust, dog hair, skin particles, everything that floats in the air that we don't see. One thing I like to think is I'd rather use a filter to filter my air than allow my lungs to filter my air. So it's just doing the job for me. What about you?
Exactly what you said. Just keeping all the stuff that we don't want to constantly breathe in, capturing it out this filter, and just making sure that it stays there versus being cycled through our bodies, homes.
For sure.
We go over a lot of things here in this Homeowner's Handbook, right? We've talked about water filtration before, and some of the biggest reasons behind water filtration is because we don't want to put all those harmful chemicals in our body. Same thing with our HVAC system, right? If we're burning candles, if we're cooking, if there's pet dander, if someone's sick in the home, all of that's going to be captured on the filter itself on a very microscopic level, but all of those issues or problems or scents are still on that, right? People start to find during the springtime where we're not really running our HVAC, we'll forget to replace our filters, turn it back on whenever it gets hot, and you'll get a smell that you haven't smelled in a while, or it's an old pet dander or musty-like smell. Most of the time it's because of a filter.
How often do you change your filter at home?
I replace my filter about every 3 months because I have one of those 4-inch filters. What about you?
Same. Well, I say that. I'm about every 2 to 3 months, and I have a 4-inch filter, but I have 3 dogs at home. So for me, just subliminally, it gets a lot dirtier faster. So as soon as I start feeling allergies or, get the sniffles, anything like that, I'm going up to the attic and replacing it. And it seems to be about every 2 months. Have you ever heard of an electronic filter?
I have. Do you know how they work?
I have no clue. I'd love you to tell me about it.
Essentially, it still has the same, it's not pleated, so it's not folded over, but a solid mesh on the filter itself. And there's a small zapping that goes on like an electric fence. Much, much, much less voltage going through that. But it's supposed to shock all of these particles that are in the air and make them stick closer together or stick together. So the filter is able to capture them a lot easier.
So do you still have to replace it, or is it forever lasting? What are we looking at here?
Definitely still have to replace it. Depending on the electronic filter that you have, some of them are washable and reusable. Others you just open up the actual filter tray itself, pull that out, throw it away, and slide the new one in.
So I've seen in some houses where the filter's in the unit. I've seen houses where it's not, and it's in like the return air grate on the ceiling.
Right.
Why is there a difference? Is there one route that's better than the other?
It all comes down to preference. If you're talking about the best filtration for your home, it's going to be the one that's at the unit because it allows you to put 4 inches of filtration before your system. Whereas if you do it in the ceiling, you're going to have one of these 1-inch filters here.
So what if I wanted to put a filter at my unit or inside the unit and then a second filter at the return air grate? Is that a problem?
Reason being is because it's restricting your system. Think about the system in the attic being a pair of lungs, if you will, right? It's going to take air in and push air out. Well, if we're restricting the amount of air that we can breathe in, it's going to be the same thing on the outcoming side. Okay. Then it starts to cause issues that can be technical, but you can freeze up your system. It essentially acts as a dirty filter because there's so much of a restriction there.
And how can I find out what size filter I need to buy?
Now, on the side of every filter, there's dimensions here. So this one here, 20 by 20 by 1-inch pleated filter. There's so many different variations of filters that you can get out there. Most of your local supply houses are going to have those. You can get them on all of your online shopping websites and so forth. They're not hard to come by. It's just knowing exactly what size. But if you go up to your unit, the place in the ceiling, wherever your filter is, pull it out. Every filter is going to say it on the side of what size it is. Now, there's also an arrow on every filter as well. The arrow on your filter, if you're doing it at your unit, more times than not, the arrow on your filter is going to point towards the majority of your system. So your filter is going to favor one side of your system, whether it be the left, right, top, or bottom. So if your filter gets installed on the left-hand side of that system, the rest, the furnace is going to be to the right, the coil, and then another duct box or plenum is what we call it. You want that arrow to face towards the rest of the system. It's essentially just showing you which way the airflow is going. You could grab a feather if you want, put it by the filter box, and you'll see which way it's sucking.
Okay.
You want your arrow to face that way, the way of the air.
So the airflow is going to flow through the filter in the direction of the arrow that is equipped on the filter, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if I open up the flap where the filter goes and the air is on, I should be able to stick my hand in there or just feel where that air, which direction the air is going.
In a sense, there's a turbulence in there. Sometimes you'll feel it on the back and front side of your hand. So it's a little harder to tell that way. The best way to think about it is the air has to hit your filter and then go into the rest of your system.
So let's say I mess up and I put it backwards. What is the cause and effect?
There's no huge issue to it. There will be a different restriction than what's intended for the system. All in all, it's happened before. We see it all the time. We go to homes to do our preventative maintenance. Notice the filters in backwards, and we'll just educate the customer on the proper airflow direction, do it the right way, and it's good to go from there. We generally, when we go to a maintenance call, we'll go up in the attic and we'll mark with a Sharpie the arrow in which the airflow is. That way, every time someone goes up there, there's no question or concern about it.
So let's say I'm really good about maintenance. I replace my filter every 2 months. Does that mean that I'm just scotch free, or is there still debris getting past the filter? Like, what's the longevity of it? When would I need to look into next level cleaning, if any at all?
All filters have what's called a MERV rating. That is essentially the amount of particles it's able to capture, right? So the higher the MERV rating, the smaller the particles it can capture. Does that make sense?
So higher the MERV, the more particles it can capture, right?
Exactly. So the higher the number, the better filtration.
Okay.
So if you look at a filter like this, a 1-inch filter, those are going to be a MERV 8. From most research that I've read up on, it's equivalent to about a human nose. So that's only going to filter your system as good as what your nose filters. So if this filter is missing anything, there's a good chance that you're breathing those same particles in of what was missed by the filter. This one down here at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm looking like, where does it show the MERV number?
So on this one right here, it's real small, MERV 8.
So near the barcode, is that consistent?
On this one here, no, not all of them are. They're weird. There is a specific filter that I like personally, if not going with electronic filter, and that is a carbon MERV 16 filter. It is the highest common residential MERV filter you can get, and the carbon acts as a smell blocker, VOC blocker. VOCs are volatile.
That's interesting. I didn't know carbon was also used in filters, because as a plumber by trade, carbon's also used in water filtration for similar purposes to remove like chlorine, the smell of chlorine. So that's a super fun fact to know that the same applies in air filtration.
100%. I mean, carbon works wonders for sure. There's no such thing as a bad filter, but there are definitely better filters than others.
Good to know. Yeah, because when I surf through the internet, I am kind of looking for a step up. You know, filtration is important to me of all aspects, so I am always looking for, what is the best, but I don't always know. And until you brought up the whole MERV thing, to be honest, like I didn't even know that. So now I have a target to look for when I'm online. So if a homeowner is going to change out their filter themselves, how long does this act take?
About as long as it took you to ask that question.
Okay. So like
it's
a couple
not
minutes, like as long as it takes to climb up the ladder to get in the attic or open the closet door that it's sitting in.
100%. The longest process is just getting to wherever your unit is.
Okay.
Once you have the filter in your hand at the unit.
So it's safe to say that pretty much anybody can do this.
But yes,
So-
majority of homeowners, I would happily say 97% of homeowners can change their own air filter.
Right on.
As long as there's no medical or physical conditions that keep you from doing so.
So 3 points of contact, climbing up the ladder, just be safe in the attic. Make sure you don't step on, the sheetrock ceiling. You're stepping
100%.
on studs and braces. Okay.
100%. Check out that last video about 3 points of contact.
So are there any tools ever required to replace a filter?
If a filter base is installed properly, no. You'll never need a tool to replace your filter.
So if I do there's an underlying issue there.
I wouldn't say underlying issue, but someone may have made it work. If there's a screw in the way or a screw holding the door closed, that just means that hinge or latch broke at some point. And I've seen that a lot in the field, to where people would just drive screws and use that as the clamp for the door. Nothing wrong with it, but it's not how it was designed to be. It makes it a little harder on the homeowner to change their own filters out.
Okay, so my HVAC system at home, it's like a magnet. It seems like open the door and then it closes and holds with a magnet. Why would somebody use screws? Like, does the magnet fail?
A lot of them have metal latches, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And just over time of opening and closing that latch, sometimes it'll break off. The rivet will fall out of the side of that latch. There's just multiple scenarios where it'll happen. There's some older filter bases that have a magnet that just goes over the front of it, an airtight magnet. And I've seen a lot of those split just because of the conditions, it being so hot or so cold in the attic, and it kind of wears away at it. More times than not, most filter bases are okay because they're not touched constantly.
Right on. So we've talked about the different MERVs. We've talked about a couple different sizes, variations. What happens if a homeowner does not change their filter ever or for a year? Like, what is the effect of that?
If you're running your HVAC system like a normal homeowner does in Texas, you'll know well before a year hits that you haven't changed your filter. Most signs are going to be the system just stops working altogether. During the air conditioning season, AC season, you can start to see lines freeze up, condensate issues, or water coming through your sheetrock. There's a bunch of different things that could happen, but you're more than likely to see freezing copper lines, refrigerant lines, and then the high potential of water coming down into your sheetrock, especially if it's up in the attic. If it's in a closet, you'll see it start going under your floors or into that closet space. And in the garage, of course, you'll just see it on the garage floor there.
But why does not changing my filter turn into water damage? Can you explain that?
Very good question. So the system is designed to bring air in across what's called a coil. That's where all of your refrigerant is. Just think of it like an ice box, right? Now you're going to bring your warm or unconditioned air across that ice box. It's going to get cold. I can get nerdy. The heat's pulled out, taken into the coil, taken outside, and all that fun stuff, right? But in layman's terms, the air comes across it and becomes cold. Well, if the filter is dirty, remember, it's like lungs, so we're restricting the amount of air we can breathe in. So now that coil is now staying cold, not able to take the heat from the air, eventually freezes over. You'll notice it. You'll notice freezing lines. The system will turn off because of an error code, or it'll satisfy at that temperature because it'll still blow cold air, just not as forceful. Once that thing gets ready to thaw out, those drain lines aren't designed for a block of ice to thaw out all at one time. It's designed for slow condensation from the AC unit. So it's not able to drain all of it at one time. And there's certain areas that will be created by ice where there's generally no water. And it'll just completely miss the drain pan, miss the drain line altogether, and just go straight to the floor or the rest of the system. I've seen burnt out motors. You can definitely see growth within a system depending on how long it's happening. And then, of course, damage to your home.
Okay. So in the event I forget to mark it on my calendar or write the date down, and I just plain Jane forget because life moves fast, what are some indicators that I can look for in my home that tells me, okay, it's time to change my filter?
Higher dust buildup, a sudden if you will, surge of allergies, eye irritation, things like that. The common allergy symptoms that you would get if you're cooking and the smells don't seem to be going away like they normally do, they're lingering a lot longer, would be an indication that you need to change your filter.
Are filters expensive?
That's subjective.
So depending on the MERV, the brand, and size, it can vary.
100%. And the person, yeah.
But overall, fairly cheap product.
It is a required one, so it's cheap for what it is.
Okay. But if I don't do it, it can turn into an expensive problem.
Very, very much so. At worst case scenario, normally it takes a little bit of time for this to happen, but we've seen countless of compressors ruined because of this. The compressor is the inside of the outdoor system. It's what pumps all your refrigerant, essentially the heart of your system. If you're making that work harder due to lack of airflow, it'll start showing early signs of failure and then eventually going out on you.
So I've seen the outdoor condenser. I've seen homes where that dude will freeze, like completely freeze over. Is that ever in relation to not changing a filter?
Definitely can be.
So in the event my condenser freezes because I haven't changed my filter or whatever, what are some things I should do as a homeowner right away?
If you notice that your system's freezing up, that it's not working the way that's supposed to, one of the worst things you can do is just letting it run the way that it is. Right? It'll fix itself. It'll work itself out. It won't. That's like thinking your car is just going to lose a check engine light. It's not going to happen. If you notice freezing lines, freezing outdoor system, you want to turn your system off. I recommend putting your fan in the on position on your thermostat. What that does is it constantly circulates air across that coil, anything that could be frozen as far as the inside portion goes. It'll help thaw it out more evenly than it would if you just let it sit there in a hot attic and let it do its own thing. It'll speed up the time of the thawing process as well. While you're doing that, you can check your filter. If your filter's black and it's not carbon, that's a good indication that could be the cause. If your filter's clean, you just replaced it, chances are you need to get someone out to evaluate the system.
Okay. Are all filters white like this, or are there any that are different colors?
Majority of them are going to be this white cotton-based filter, with the exception of your more cost-effective filters. They do make some that look like sponges on the outside. Well, they just look like sponges in general. It's like a mesh material. A lot of times they're a royal blue or green color. Those are the least promising filters you can get. Don't recommend those at all.
So most commonly, it's a cotton base, and then I've heard you mention the carbon base, and then we've mentioned electronic. Is there any other types of fibers or different types of materials that go into these filters?
Yeah, they use some fiberglass for the construction of it, and then they also use polyester.
So once I've changed out my filter, put the new one in, got the old one in my hand, what do I do with that?
You have a trash can?
I do.
Use one hand to hold your filter. Second one, open that trash can lid. Toss it in there.
So no special crazy instructions. Just trash it and go.
It's not like disposing mercury or anything that's toxic. It's as easy as just throwing it in your trash can.
Okay.
Majority of filters are recyclable as well.
So I think we've covered all the basics, all the DIY. We've established that basically anybody can do this. Last question for you, Bruce. Where can I purchase the air filter?
You can get filters from really any hardware store. Most of your online shopping places have them. Even your local grocery stores carry most of them. You can also go to the Bacon website. We've got this really cool feature where you can set it on a schedule to have your filters dropped off at the same day of the month on a reoccurring service. That way you don't have to worry about missing that day. As soon as they land on your doorstep, go up there, change them out, good to go.
So just go to everyonelovesbacon.com.
Everyonelovesbacon.com.
There it is. Click here.